Science can't do it all. So heal yourself with your mind. Hi, I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. And admittedly, I'm very happy to be back. So we closed out last week with equipment problems, and so it knocked us off the air for a couple of days. So we're back. And today's lesson is that science can't do it all. So you've got to heal ourselves with our minds. Heal ourselves with our minds. Too many people believe that healing through the so-called energy of infinite intelligence is really just a fairy tale. Too many people. According to Brian Dunning, a professional scientific skeptic, things like the human aura or chi or energy or Reiki energy are not real. In his rebuttal to a statement made by a Reiki healer to describe her work, he states, none of these, I think I have that here, Mr. Dunning, none of these have any counterpart in the physical world. Although she attempted to describe their properties as heat or magnetism, those properties are already taken by, heat and magnetism. There are no properties attributable to the mysterious field she describes, and it cannot be authoritatively said to exist. Thank you, Mr. Dunning. But I found that one of the common threads with the skeptics that I have encountered is that they actually believe in nothing outside of their own limited view of the world. If they can't see it, if they can't explain it, then it doesn't exist as far as they're concerned. Unfortunately, I think that makes them vulnerable to short-sightedness and an inability to see a larger world beyond their own narrow vision. This is evidenced by the fact that Mr. Dunning and his very narrow vision ended up being convicted of wire fraud and getting sentenced to, I think it was 15 months in prison. Please click on the thumbs up button below. And if you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe, which is in the lower right-hand corner. Remember, I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, suggestions, experiences, and you can share those in the chat box on the right side of the screen. If you're watching in Facebook, the chat box is below the video or on the right side of the screen. Okay, so I'd love to get your comments and thoughts, please. Now, one thing we have to realize when we're dealing with healing energy is that it's very, very subtle. It's not going to knock you off your feet, and it has nothing to prove to us. It just is. So if we are rigid in our belief that it does not exist, it doesn't care. It just continues to work even if it does so without us. It just keeps going. According to Dr. Michael Grosso, who wrote the book The Angels and he wrote a book called Frontiers of the Soul. And Dr. Grosso says, researchers have found from many types of studies that the less rigid one's mindset, the more likely it is that a paranormal force or idea will break into experience. The more unworldly our minds, the more detached from habitual patterns of response, the greater is our openness to the promptings from a higher reality principle. The fewer the mechanical restraints, the more spontaneous our mode of being in the world, the more likely it is that extraordinary things will occur in our life. Let me repeat that. The less rigid our mindset, the more likely it is that extraordinary things will occur in our lives. Of course, there are those who don't want extraordinary things to occur in their lives. They want their lives to go according to plan with no surprises. And they want to be able to trust what is before them will always be there. You know, that's not a terrible thing to think. In fact, one of the richest people in the world agrees with that premise. Larry Fink, who is president of BlackRock Hedge Fund, which has over $3 trillion, 3 trillion with a T, $3 trillion under management, says the market likes totalitarian governments. Why? Because everything and everybody is under strict and rigid control. There are no surprises. They like that. Bankers like that. But let me reiterate, the less rigid our mindset, the more likely it is that extraordinary things will occur in our lives. So, if you want to block out anything extraordinary happening in your life, you are entirely within your rights to do so. You can do that. But realize this, we are not mindless, powerless pawns to be controlled by those who are supposed to be in charge. We are something else. Let me bring that up just to remind you. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. Yes, we have power, and we are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. Makes a difference. You know, Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote a book called The Placebo Effect. No, he wrote a book called You Are the Placebo. That's what it was. You Are the Placebo. And his book was basically explaining to us what goes on inside our bodies when whenever something's on our mind, when we think about healing, perhaps. Anyway, Dr. Dispenza, in that book, shares a story that I think is relevant here. It's the story of a man who lives in St. Louis. No, he did live in St. Louis. And his wife was killed in a disastrous event. It was a big accident. Well, 6 months later, he was still in deep grief when he was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus. So he underwent surgery to have it removed. Then a couple of months later, he was told the cancer had moved to his liver and that it was inoperable. It was very aggressive. And he had only months to live. All right, so he had it in his esophagus. He had it removed. They told him 2 months later, it's now moved to his liver and it's terminal. Well, during his treatment period, he met and he fell in love with a woman who knew about his terminal condition, and she agreed to marry him so that they could share whatever time he had left in his life. Really a loving thing to do. So they got married and they moved to her hometown so she could be near her family during this stressful time. So during their time there, he was welcomed in by the family. They cared for him as part of the family, as well as the love that his wife gave him. And he knew his time was short, but he wanted to hang on until after Christmas with the family because he was having such a good time with them and he wanted to spend one last Christmas. So after he had told the doctor this is what he was going to do and he had made this decision, well, his condition actually improved. He got better. And he had a great Christmas. He enjoyed spending time with the family and exchanging gifts, etc., etc. Then a week after Christmas, 1 week, his condition worsened. It worsened rapidly. And his wife had to rush him to the hospital. And even though The lab test showed that there was nothing seriously wrong with him. Nothing. He died within a few days. When the results of his autopsy came back, his doctor was amazed. Now, he had a small nodule of cancer on his liver, but it was not big enough to kill him, and it was not even big enough to cause him much discomfort. Otherwise, he was healthy. The diagnosis he had received that he had terminal cancer of the liver was a false positive, and he never bothered to get a second opinion. So it appears that this man died because he believed he was going to die. He believed it. And everyone around him believed he was going to die. So he died on his belief. And there are so many stories of people who died because they believed they were going to die. There are also many, many stories of people who decided they were not going to die. They were not going to give up, even though it appeared that all was hopeless. They had terminal diagnoses, and they declared that they were going to keep living. And you know what? They not only lived, but they were cured of that deadly disease. And they went on to live happy, healthy lives. It happens. When I was with the Church of Amron in San Francisco, I was a member of a healing circle led by Reverend Pamela Ketzel. Pamela is a registered nurse and has a very powerful healing field around her, an electromagnetic field, her aura, in other words. And I remember we participated in Pam's healing circle every week. And people would submit their own names, or they would submit the names of loved ones for us to send our concentrated healing energy to them. And I can remember receiving letters of gratitude from people who had experienced healing after our healing circle had worked on their case. I remember one woman who was scheduled for heart surgery to repair a valve in her heart that was so damaged that she was going to die if she didn't get the operation. And according to her letter, when the surgeon opened her chest to begin the operation, her heart had healed itself, and the surgery was no longer required. It went from near death to life. The less rigid our mindset, the more likely it is that extraordinary things will occur in our lives. We can be healed by the energy of infinite intelligence. Pamela Ketzel's healing circle, as well as other healing circles around the country that we were aware of, have had many cases of spontaneous healings occur after they worked on them. The concept of a spiritual healing actually is so intriguing that several hospitals have tested the theory. For example, the American Society of Hypertension established in 2006 that people who have spiritual practice have experienced lower blood pressure. People with spiritual practices, belief, prayer, have lower blood pressure than people who do not believe. According to an article in Newsmax Health by a researcher named Tom Knox, he said, research at San Francisco General Hospital looked at the effect of prayer on 393 cardiac patients. Half of the patients were prayed for by strangers who only had the patients' names. Those patients, the ones that were prayed for, had fewer complications, fewer cases of pneumonia, and needed less drug treatment. They also got better, quicker, and left the hospital earlier. The proof of the power of prayer is overwhelming. Atheists can sneer at faith all they like, but they can't assume science is on their side. So, how do we invoke the healing power of infinite intelligence? Well, the first step is that we have to believe it's possible. It's belief. We have to believe. You know, I have a sign in front of me in front of my desk to remind me of the importance of belief. What happened was a number of years ago when I was making appearances on radio and TV and conferences to talk about the presence and power of angels, I was invited by an attorney to deliver a talk about angels at San Quentin Penitentiary. I accepted the invitation, but on the day I was to do the talk, I began to have second thoughts. I was intimidated, actually, by going inside the prison. I was afraid that the residents in the prison would be hostile. And I was giving myself all kinds of excuses as to why this was a bad idea. So as I was driving down the freeway to the prison, filling my mind with doubts about the sensibility of this, a car cut in front of me, and it cut so close that I had to hit my brakes to avoid collision. And I remember that it was a black BMW speeding to get off at the next exit because he had waited too long to go over to the exit lanes. Anyway, as I opened my mouth to start making, let us say, disparaging remarks about the driver of that car, I looked down at the license plate, and my words actually froze in my mouth. They froze in my mouth because the license plate said, "Just believe." JSTBLEV, just believe. I immediately realized that I had been given a message. I had been given a message by infinite intelligence, by the angels, telling me to stop doubting and believe in what I was doing. And so when I delivered my talk in San Quentin that night, the men who were in attendance and heard my talk were very happy to hear what I had to say, and they even started sharing with me experiences of their own, experiences that they thought where the angels intervened in their lives. One guy thought an angel actually saved him from being ambushed. So, just believe. Just believe. You know, there are various types of energy healing. Most of them are hands-on healing, like Reiki or therapeutic touch or Qigong. And we can talk about those tomorrow. But today we're talking about distance healings. And that's when you're sending energy, without touching them, to somebody at a different location, you know, across the room or across the country. Sending energy to someone who needs healing. So the first step is to invoke the healing power of infinite intelligence by just believing. You have the power to block it with your disbelief, but you also have the power to turn it on with your belief. Remember, you are an individualized expression of infinite intelligence. Now, the second step is to get out of the way. The healing energy is not your energy, so let go of any delusion that you're doing anything in this process. You are only the channel for this energy, not the source. Heed the words of the book, Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. In other words, during this process, think only of infinite intelligence. Think only of the higher power, not of yourself, not of what's coming through you, but on the higher power. And then step 3 is to pray fervently, or think of some mantra to repeat over and over again to raise your vibration and turn off your mind. And then as you do this, step 4 is to imagine the energy flowing through your body and out to the person you're trying to help. Your prayer or mantra doesn't have to be complicated. Even a phrase as simple as thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, said over and over again can help. And if you repeat it enough times with enough energy, your mind is going to move into an altered state of consciousness. And your ego will move out of the way, and your vibration will start to rise. I have a mantra that I use which is more complex because it calls on the angels, the healing angels. But I've used it so many times over and over again that as soon as I start repeating it, my mind automatically goes into an altered state. And I can feel the energy beginning to rush through me as I go. And that will go on for a few minutes, and then it's over. And then you can bring yourself back to a conscious state. Now, it doesn't really take that long once you've used it. You get used to it. Initially, you may not feel anything. That's okay. Just imagine that the energy of infinite intelligence is flowing through you. Energy follows thought. So even though you don't feel it, if you believe it, then it is happening. So that's how we invoke the energy of healing, of infinite intelligence to bring about healing. So remember, the steps are: 1, believe that infinite intelligence is real, and its energy to heal is real. 2, get your ego out of the picture because you are not the source. Understand that infinite intelligence is the source, and you are just the channel. 3, pray fervently or repeat the mantra to elevate your vibration and turn off your mind. Something as simple as thank you, thank you, thank you will work. Number 4, allow or imagine the energy flowing through your body and out to the person that you are trying to help. Energy follows thought, so imagine that. And then 5, after a few minutes when you feel complete, give thanks and count backwards from 5 to 1 to bring yourself back into a normal state of mind, out of that altered state of mind. Okay? So that's healing 101. That's healing from a distance without touching, but sending out healing energy and by tuning yourself into infinite intelligence and allowing the energy to flow through you. Now, as I said, tomorrow we're going to talk about other kinds of healing energy in the hands-on state, but we'll get to that tomorrow. In the meantime, let's close with prayer. Thank you, infinite intelligence, for bringing us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work that we have come here to do. Thank you, infinite intelligence, for bringing us into this space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are part of the greater whole, we are beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. As we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. And we know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we are now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our connections will grow stronger and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. So, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you spending some time with me. And I look forward to us continuing this conversation tomorrow as we talk about, thank you, as we talk about hands-on healing. Thank you, JB. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And remember, I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this has been On the Wings of Your Mind.